Welcome to episode 12 of Successful Demo. In each episode, we analyze the theoretical and practical aspects of one more newly released cards. This episode is a fortnight due at the very least. Mining Accident is a card that I set my eyes on the moment Crimson Dust was spoiled. This card has really caught my attention as one of the premier bad pub generating cards, unlike any other we've seen so far. However, the problem is, as I tried to build a deck around it, I played a couple of games, tweaked the deck again, played some more games. I just couldn't get it to work, both in real life and on JNet. My deck just kept floundering. Mining Accident just never really shone that much. Yeah, and it's a pity. So because of that, I was never able to get a game up where I could really showcase the power of Mining Accident. And this one's actually no exception. So I'm still calling this successful demo because I still want to go through the theory behind this card. I feel like I can talk a bit about it. But when it comes to practice, I just don't really have the patience to wait for the one game where Mining Accident just shines bright like Omaqua did in the previous episode. So let's talk about this card. It has quite a lot of restrictions actually, for what I thought was a really good card. Firstly, it's very unreliable. As you might tell, the corp has the option to not take the bad pub if they have at least 5 credits with them. Therefore, it is highly unwise to use only mining accident in your deck and expect it to generate the bad pub reliably every single game. So if you're building like a blackmail based deck, or something like, I don't know, yeah, something that requires bad pub to be on, well, Mining Accident won't guarantee that for you. You are better off playing Valencia to enable your bad pub shenanigans. Mining Accident also requires a successful central run. This is not something that, this is actually something that's quite easy to forget. But in general, this means that you really want to play Mining Accident in a deck that is already playing very aggressive, that already wants to run. Something like an Alice Merchant, for example, would be a good idea because you're already running archives anyway, and you can then trigger a Mining Accident, for example. So there's something to keep in mind because this card, as we'll see later, isn't very efficient if your deck isn't run based to begin with. Finally, we have to take note of the fact that the corp has the option to pay 5 credits, and this credit swing is a lot more potent in the early game compared to the late game. Similarly, bad publicity is something you want to get as soon as possible. If you get it late in the game, it's not going to generate as much passive income as it would if you got it right off the bat. Therefore, this is a card you want to play multiples because, well, successive copies aren't useless, but more importantly also because you want to see it consistently early. Get an early turn 1 or 2 Mining Accident off because that is when it shines the brightest. Alright, all those restrictions and downsides aside, this card actually checks out in terms of the maths. We look at the bad pub option. This is unrivaled, I believe, as far as bad pub dishing goes. For a click and 2 credits, you get 1 bad pub. This is a very good trade. Just put it side by side by other existing cards like investigative journalism, which requires 5 clicks, or in the case of frame job, 1 credit and 2 clicks because it's a double, and the agenda as well. Boy, these bad pub options are bad. In contrast, Mining Accident's a lot better, obviously at the expense of not being reliable. In the alternative case, the corp chooses to lose the 5 credits instead, and that's not too shabby an option either, to be frank. With that 1 click by playing Mining Accident, you're generating a 3 credit differential in your favor. You lose 2, but the corp loses 5. That's pretty good. And even better if the corp is poor. It's kind of like a siphon, right? Siphon's still good, but not as effective if the corp is rich. But if the corp is poor, siphon can really hammer them into the ground. Same thing with Mining Accident. It's credit denial. More effective when the corp is really struggling. The big thing, however, is that it potentially takes the corp out of ice resin range. So if they had something like 8 or 9 credits, they might threaten the DNA tracker, the Fairchild 3, or that nasty toll booth. Play a Mining Accident, even if they don't take the bad pub, guess what? Now you can run more freely on the other servers because they are no longer in ice resin range. This is quite a key thing to note. It also puts them out of range for big operations like IPO or restructure. So quite a lot of benefits to having credit denial on a card that doesn't require a successful HQ run, huh? Of course, we must again keep in mind that all these calculations assume that you assume that you're already wanting to run. If you weren't intending to run in the first place, then mining accident actually plays very much like a double, in the sense that you need 2 clicks, one to run and another to play the mining accident after you made the successful central run. If it's a double, mining accident is quite a fair bit worse, I must say. So because of everything I've said so far, I decided that mining accident would best fit in a run-based Valencia Desperado deck. So this is what I'm going to play. This is actually what I've been toying with ever since Crimson Dust came out. I mean, it just fits so nicely. You start with a 1 bad pump from Valencia, who already wants to run anyway, because she's making use of the bad pump to get discounts of Street Peddler, to get Desperado and Data Sucker counters. So all of it, I mean, you already have a run-based deck, and Mining Accident just puts a further hurt in the corpus wounds when you're dishing out extra bad pub on top of your existing one, making servers very, very cheap to run if they choose the bad pub option. So Mining Accident seems like a very natural fit in Valencia, and it really is. But the more I played it, it was a lot of just unfortunate things happening during my games. For example, I don't see Mining Accident early enough. Sometimes the 5 credit differential doesn't really matter because the corp recovers pretty quickly, or I wasn't able to recover my own economy quickly enough. And yeah, just many games that Mining Accident just didn't do enough for me, which kind of speaks to how which might be a message that it's not that good to begin with, let's put it that way. So yeah, nonetheless, we're still going to go through with this playthrough. Do not expect any amazing uses of Mining Accident here. In fact, this is pretty much not a showcase of Mining Accident at all. I want you to look at the corpse deck, because my opponent is going to play a really interesting deck. Today we are up against Titan Transnational, and from first glance I can already tell this is going to be a priority construction deck. I love priority construction, but this bodes extremely bad for me, because as Desperado Valencia, I spend my influence on everything but blackmails. You're not going to see blackmails in my deck, and because of this I won't be able to contest a rushing remote, and that could spell deep trouble for me. I still keep my opening hand though, because it has draw, which is exactly what I need in this matchup. So after drawing, I find myself the Mining Accident, that one card that is going to be featured today. And as soon as I thought that, my opponent quickly scored out a hostile takeover, putting them at 1 bad pub. So at this point, I'm like, okay, they're probably not going to get rid of the bad pub. This is a rush deck. They don't really care about bad pub tax. I mean, yeah, making servers less taxing because they're trying to gear check me. So how big is this Mining Accident going to be? I don't know. But since I got a dirty laundry of archives anyway, might as well just play it just for you, audience. This is almost certainly a subpar, because I fully expect my opponent to take the bad pub here, and sure they do. So voila, they're now at 2 bad pub. And this is the big problem with Mining Accident. When you give the corp the choice, they can always pick the choice that is most beneficial for them, and there's a good chance that this option that they pick is, not going to really matter during the game, as this is the case. Sorry, did I say 2 bad pub? I meant 3 bad pub. Valencia does give 1 bad pub from the very start. So yeah, going from 2 to 3 bad pub doesn't really change a whole lot. So my opponent keeps me out with a vanilla there. Alright, I can't get past it. I haven't found my barrier breaker, but I do have a rebirth in hand, so rebirth into Quetzal is definitely an option here. My opponent continues on getting more money and protecting a Jackson, followed by a Prycon onto the remote, quashing any hopes of me contesting that Jackson Howard. You always want to contest Jackson Howard against a rush deck, because left there for too long, they will be able to draw into all their agendas and combo pieces. I do find the Parasite here, which is key for getting rid of the vanilla, but I choose to ditch it instead. Here's the reasoning behind it. Both I've had versus are very key in this matchup. As I said, I want to go fast, I need to find my breakers quickly. Money isn't a problem because my opponent's inundated with bad pub. Deja Vu is absolutely essential. you know, you'll never know when you need recursion. Rebirth is such a strong card, and more might just be key for disrupting my opponent's combo. I'm still not very sure what kind of Titan deck they are. I know it has Prycon. That's about it. I don't know what they spend their influence on. It must be some sort of combo card, so having more would be very useful. Now I'm gonna set up my drip economy in the blue moose, and that will keep me afloat for the rest of the game, along with the bad pup. You'll notice I trashed my Desperado there because I'm running dual console, and this game I want the Maw over the Desperado. As I said, the disruptive power is very powerful, and on the other hand, I don't really need money this game. I do not expect my opponent's ice to be particularly taxing. And even if it is, I still have one more Desperado left in my deck, so that's fine. Here I tried to get the daily cast off my Peddler, forgetting that, yeah, I am a bit too poor for that. So we are going to Blue Moose something, and that something's a Desperado. And we see, yeah, I haven't found my Sentry Breaker yet. I haven't found my Paperclip yet, so this is a very awkward situation. The good news is my opponent has utterly, completely failed at rushing out. It has been quite a few turns since the Jackson hit and the Prycon landed on the remote, but no agendas to show for it. Typically as Titan, you would expect to get an Atlas train out sooner rather than later, but my opponent seems to not have found the Atlases at all, despite having dug through about 40% of the deck. Here I'm going to just use cards from my hand, using the Omar, Rebirth into Omar, and running into HQ here, accessing a Priority Construction, and a Chrysium Grid, which is the upgrade on HQ. I choose not to trash it there because I know that more will hit the table sooner or later, and being able to trigger more of Chrysium would be great. On the other hand, like, there's no reason for me to trash the Chrysium on HQ because I don't run Vam or Siphon or the like. My opponent finds a hostile takeover. Oh no, it's not hostile, it's a Trick of Light into Project Atlas. Okay, this is quite threatening. So they have shown their influence, they're on fast advance, and this is bad news because to fast advance they need two combo pieces. They need the Atlas and they need the fast advance in the Trick of Light. As soon as they have one of those two pieces in their hand, they can fetch the other using the Atlas token and chain Atlases. So this is known as an Atlas train for those of you less familiar with it, and is a very big threat. This means I have to keep locking R&D and to start using my more triggers. I need to start getting rid of operations from my opponent's hand to disrupt combos. I hit a Sevius on the base of R&D, and that's really bad news, but I do get an Armored Service in return. So now I'm almost equalizing the score line at 2-3. But the reset really hurt because this means I have no more Data Sucker counters and I cannot contest ice safely. I'm worried about Horror, I'm worried about Morcelus. These are very deadly ice that I want to avoid. Not to mention that I haven't found my killer yet. Although sentries aren't worrying me that much. The worst they can do with sentries is to trash my programs, but I have the spare York in my hand. So I'm not that worried about sentries just yet. Vanilla is very awkward though. The Paperclip's in my hand, but I haven't got it into the bin yet, so I'm not able to bust through HQ. Can only do that next turn when the Paperclip finally does hit the bin on the discard. So this is where the game starts swinging in my favor. If the Corp doesn't win out by now or threaten the win, they're going to find it very difficult. Thankfully my opponent actually managed to find the Audacity, or maybe it was in their hand all along, so they're going to fast advance these Atlas that they've tilted up with the first Atlas counter and use Audacity to chuck their entire hand into the bin. No point running it because Jackson's out, so this is a turn for me to abuse central servers. I'm going to make a run on R&D to access a hostile takeover, putting me on 3 points. Following that, and continuing the pressure, I'm going to run HQ here. This seems weird because my opponent has no hands in HQ, so there's no more triggers and no accesses, but what I need here is actually not the accesses, but the Data Sucker counter. With 2 Sucker counters and the York, I can then safely run this remote, not having to worry about Morcelus as a potentially problematic code gate. Sure enough was the Morcelus, so I'm able to get through that just fine. I certainly feel the need to keep the pressure up against my opponent because they are pretty close to victory. All they need is just one more Atlas and one more fast advance mechanism. I can't stop that. This is why I'm running so rampantly right now. Even though I'm very close to setting up my entire win condition right now, all I need to do is to get the Mimic on the board, get enough Sucker counters, and I'll be unstoppable. By the time I get there, it might just be too late. As you see my opponent dropping an Atlas in the server. I thought it was an Atlas, but hey, he rezzed it. It was a Jackson. Which is pretty bad news as well. I didn't want to see the Jackson. This means that any of the cards they just drew last turn could be the winning agenda. So I need to run HQ here, get a Maw trigger. Now, interestingly, you can choose to either trigger Maw first. I mean, you can either choose to access the hand first or to access the Christian Grid first. I choose to access the hand here because I want to see what card I mill into the bin, whether it is the card I access. I access an Audacity and something gets trashed, but it's not the Audacity that I access. So this is very scary. This Audacity was tilted up by my opponent using Project Atlas. So he no longer has the Atlas token. I'm wondering at this point if they have an Atlas in hand. So, yeah, I don't know. They might be waiting for the Atlas top deck. So I'm going to check their hand again. Hopefully, we see... Nope, it's a Macrophage and Christian Grid. So the moment I saw the Macrophage, I immediately thought, well, that sucks. That absolutely sucks. Macrophage absolutely wrecks me. I need to run my opponent's R&D before they get the Macrophage down. So I run the R&D here. And... yeah. That is a card. Well, I guess it's not the worst. I still have a Deja Vu left in my deck, and I still have the spare York in my hand. So I'm not locked out, but that is certainly painful as I watch my York and Mimic go up in flames. I guess I'm just being an idiot for not using Omar that turn. I obviously should have used Omar to run R&D instead of running straight into R&D, knowing very full well that Archer is a card. Silly me. Okay, look on the bright side. That was a tactical move because that forced my opponent to use their hostile takeover. This means that they can't score out next turn, right? Yeah, they might have done so if they had Atlas and Fast Advance in hand, but now they can't. So that was a very smart move, right? Surely it was. Okay, my opponent jammed something to the remote. It could be an agenda. We have to be careful about that. So I quickly draw up with I've Had Worse, trying to find the Deja Vu. No dice. What am I to do here? Never mind, I'm just going to drop my Yogg and run HQ. Once again, trying to get a Maw trigger every single turn to clear my opponent's hand of any fast advance shenanigans. I'm going to access a hedge fund from their hand and maw it straight into the bin, denying it from them, not that it really matters, and then run the remote using York to break the Merciless, and Paperclip gets the vanilla. I thought it might be an agenda, but turns out it's a Jackson Howard. The last one. Very important to take note. This means no more recursion for them and no more hyper drawing. So if they drop anything to the remote, there's a very, very good chance it's an agenda. Gonna end my turn here. I still have quite a good advantage as long as I find my recursion for Mimic. That is the key. Yeah, that's the key thing I need here right now. Once I find the Mimic, I should be able to I should be good to go once again. So I play Inject to find the Deja Vu. No dice as usual. But I do have a Net Ready Ice in my hand, so I'm looking to play this Net Ready Ice sooner rather than later, hoping to trigger the I've Had Worse meat damage, but no, it doesn't hit the I've Had Worse, so I'm forced to, you know, just continue on trying to get more triggers every single turn. Remember, the pressure is still on. I am still worried that my opponent has a 3 hostile, 3 Atlas agenda suite, and I don't want them to get anywhere close to scoring out. So I'm going to run HQ here, charge up my York in case it's a Horm or a Merciless, and see what they do. They're thinking about it pretty hard, but they choose not to res whatever that ice is. So I'm going to get a free access and a free Maw trigger. This should be pretty good. So the name of the game here is HQ Disruption because they need 2 hands to clap. They need the Atlas and the Trick of Light. Since I have the ability to trash Trick of Light from their hand, as long as I keep hitting HQ every single turn, they won't be able to get that fast advance combo off, and all I need to do is to regularly hit HQ as well as lock that remote. Speaking of the Trick of Light, I hit it on my access and watch it go into the bin with more. Perfect. Very perfect. That's one less fast advance tool I have to worry about. And on my last click, I'm going to play I've Had Worse, and I do find the Deja Vu I was looking for, along with a Parasite for good measure. Very good. Everything's going pretty decently. My opponent might be in a bit of trouble, but as long as I keep up the pressure, there is no reason for me to lose at this point. The big thing that's worrying me right now are the possible outs my opponent has, and Macrophage is a very good out. Macrophage causes all sorts of problems for my Breaker Suite, especially if the Macrophage is on the same server as, say, an Archer. Then that's too many sucker counters I need. So I'm going to run HQ here, using Net Ready Ice on York so that my opponent cannot tax me on sucker counters if that's a code gate. I don't think it's an Archer, because if it were, my opponent would have rested last turn and sniped my York with it. So I'm not too worried about face checking this. This is fine. This is fine. We do not have a Mimic. We do not have a York. But it's fine. We have a Parasite. So we Parasite the Archer on HQ. So I can still run HQ, kill the Archer with sucker counters, and win on HQ. If they jam agendas, I can run the remote. I serve Paperclip, I can get through Vanilla, and Morcelus doesn't end the run. So this is one big problem about Morcelus. It doesn't end the run, so it's actually not that good on the remote, especially if we use Trick of Light to remove... Oh, never mind. Yeah, my opponent's advancing it. Okay, ends the run. Fine, we can't get through the remote. HQ still fine. And of course, we still have the Omar ability. Having seen Macrophage earlier, we know that Omar runs are probably safe. I might lose all my viruses if I can't pay into the traces, but otherwise I can snipe the random access from HQ or R&D here and there. I find my ice cover at long last, but late is better than never, because this ice cover will allow me to boost myself into the range where I can kill the Archer on HQ with Parasite and Data Suckers. Of course, having sacrificed a bunch of agendas, my opponent will find it very hard to score out from now on. They'll have to drop things in the remote, which, well, I can't really contest, but that's something they don't know for sure. I'm going to play the Peddler here to ruse them a bit. Oh, hey look, it's the second Mimic. So with the second Mimic, I can get past the Archer now. Archer on HQ, Archer on R&D, they're both fine. I just have to be very careful to install the Mimic and use Net Ready Ice on Mimic before initiating the run. You cannot use Net Ready Ice to pump a breaker you installed mid-run. So I'm going to run R&D here and... Well, this is fine. This is fine. This is fine. This is not fine. Every single time every single Archer, can you believe it? This is dumb. This is f***ing stupid. I mean, I had this game. My opponent was too slow. I had all my breakers set up. I had all the sucker counters. And... just one access, not gonna help. Come on, not even gonna throw me a bone. Access so many cards this game. I couldn't win, and the Archers just got the better of me. How dumb is that? This is an absolute f***ing ass of a show. Like seriously, this successful demo. I mean, I want just just give me one game where I can show off mining accident. No, f you. You and your bad publicity. I'm gonna take bad publicity myself so you don't get the mining accident to show off. Ha! Eat that. Oh, and let me rub some salt in your wounds with this lame ass bullshit win con that is Archer. Seriously. And you know what? I'm just gonna concede so you don't get the pleasure of winning. Now f off. That was an entertaining game. Props to my opponent for such an interesting Titan deck. As for mining accident, well, maybe another day.